During the Second World War, lots of monstrosities were happening, and shameful groups were responsible for these things even happening, and all they wanted to do was purify society. Governments were really involved with this, whether it be the totalitarians from Japan or even the National Socialist Party from Germany. Now, the Germans, they were fixed on such a pure society that they had to imprison everybody. They didn't fit their ideals, and you're gone. It's no dark skin, just white, blonde, blue eyes, athletic, tall. So most of what was actually going on in Germany during the Second World War was covered up with the government's propaganda, and everybody thought life was normal. They couldn't really understand that such a thing would be happening in such a beautiful country. They could have just opened their eyes and took a look around at what people were doing and what was being experienced by those who weren't part of the Aryan supremacy race. Now, you've got a group of people here that aren't actually being killed in the concentration camps. So why are they being held there? The Nazis, they wanted to further advance their military, their sciences, their technology. And it's really interesting just to see what the Nazis did. So for this presentation, I'll be talking about what the experiments did. It's just really interesting, the mindset of the people and what causes them to do such things. Alright, so at Auschwitz we've got Dr. Joseph Mengele. He became the head of the experiments there. Most of these experiments were conducted to prove the Nordic superiority, and most of the experimentees were children. They didn't have to be just from one race. He experimented on a wide array of people, ranging from twins to gypsy children. It's really weird. I don't understand why he'd kill off his experiments, to be honest. If they were experiments and they were proof, I'd want them kept alive so I could just show them off. But once these camps were infiltrated, Mengele, he fled to South America and took most of his papers with him, according to his son. So many things today we can't actually see because of the lack of documentation, and we don't really understand why he did these things. So each part, there were a bunch of different experiments. Most of them had different doctors and physicians for each part. For example, we've got Siegfried Rug and Hans Romberg, and they teamed up with a Dr. Rascher to try and figure out the highest altitude a person could survive at, or to see how long people could withstand the loss of air pressure. So they were done to help the military and the airplane bombers if they needed to eject from the plane, for instance, in case they're being shot down. And the majority of the people they tested on wound up dead or they suffered immense trauma. Besides that, there were also experiments for different situations in military, such as finding a cure for hypothermia. The victims, they were placed in vats of ice water, and then they were pulled out. Different means of trying to reheat the body were put into act, but many of them didn't come back. And there were no painkillers given to these prisoners, so they had to endure all of that just like a normal person, and I find that really hard to believe because you'd want them in their best condition, but I guess it makes sense because you get the more accurate results if they're not using the painkillers. We've also got different camps that are testing for diseases and amputations. Certain of them were forced into getting amputations, which is really fun. Not really, but then they'd have another member attach one of their arms to one of their arm sockets. So it'd be a cross. And there are about 70 facilities across the Nazi regime which had people being tested on. What's really interesting is the propaganda that was being used. About the same time that this went on, there's a Soviet film showing a dog's head being reanimated by a machine, and then the body was being reanimated too. This might have started the whole reanimation craze, or the zombie craze. I think this is why there was the monkey head experiment done by Robert J. White, where he attached the monkey's head did the whole head transplant thing. And another myth that was kind of aroused at the same time was the Nazi gold, and apparently, the gold had vanished that all of the Nazis had attained. But there has been a recent story which points to the location of the Nazi gold. These clues are given in a musical score called the March Impromptu, which was composed by Gottfried Ferdelin.
Oxygen. The artificial blood circulation ensures the metabolism necessary for the life of the head. The isolated head lives on for hours and reacts to external stimuli. The isolated head even reacts to light and to sound.
From this presentation, I'd like to just put some light onto what the Nazis did in addition to just having the concentration camps. There's so much that we don't know, and nobody really pays any attention to most of the experiments gone on, but that's the most interesting part I find, is just that how people can become so warped and just so twisted by power that they think it's right to just experiment on all these people regardless of their race. And there is no race supremacy, but these people had thought there was. It's really interesting. But yeah, Adolf Hitler, he was really brilliant, even though he was a bit crazy, but madness and brilliance do go hand in hand for most parts involving leadership.